Hello, fellow gamers and game developers. Just a couple of weeks ago, I published a video comparing the performance of Avian and Rapier, the two physics engines that are available in Bevy. There were a couple of corrections to that video that I want to talk about today, and a lot has happened already. So Avian got another big release, and we want to talk about an updated performance review of the two engines and which kinds of engines you should be looking at for making high performing physics in your games. So this is the game with which I recently switched to Avian because I'm now getting really good performance and because I really like the API. Where each of these blocks, as you can see, is a modeled physics entity. So that can get quite expensive really fast. After the last video, Yondolf, the creator of Avian, informed me that I had a major issue with my methodology there. The two different physics engines, Avian and Rapier, run on different schedules in Bevy, and that gives them vastly different performance profiles and different properties. And among other things, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today. Yeah, it was time to make an update anyways, because in the brief period since Bevy 018 and Avian 05 came out, Avian already received another big update and was updated to version 0.6. Avian 0.6 brings great news for all of you beautiful people who want to make their own character controllers, as it implements now the move and slide function. This is a core functionality of all kinematic character controller setups. It also extends support for joint motors and, once more, increases performance. We have a new a broad face treatment, which will be much more performant for large scenes and static geometries because the collision detections are now optimized. This also applies to spatial queries. Spatial queries are now also capable of using reusing data from other parts of the program from the broad phase, which leads to further performance increases. So looking forward to how that plays out. It turns out that the default conditions that are set in Avian and Rapier are completely different. While Avian is running by default in a fixed update schedule or fixed post update schedule, Rapier is using the post update schedule, so a non-deterministic schedule. That's quite different, and that's something we should really keep in mind. Avian is also running 6 simulation steps in between rendered frames or in between physics steps, and Rapier is only simulating 4 steps. Because Rapier is now running in the post update step, it has to use a little hack to basically create its own fixed update a little bit by limiting the maximum delta t that can be used. Maximum, and by that basically the maximum speed that can be reached and things like this. So that means that when the frame rate drops in Rapier, actually the simulation becomes slower. And that quite easily explains why we didn't see such a sharp drop-off in frames for Rapier. Rapier is gradually slowing down in its standard settings, while Avian, when it reaches the point where it toasts your computer, it toasts your computer, as we can see in the background right now. But the flip side of that is that this gives us much better determinism in Avian, so we can get much more reproducible results, which is really nice. While Rapier's determinism is much lower, so there we have to be a bit careful, especially when you want to model things that should be really quite reproducible. So maybe not like a box with 10,000 balls, but if you have actually a jump and run game where you don't want the same decision and the same enemy to end up in different spots at different times in the same level, then give fixed update a try maybe. So today we will look at a comparison of 2D and 3D ball pits. So particles in 2D and 3D boxes will be modeled in Avian 0.18.1 and Avian 0.61 and Rapier 0.33. What we're doing and what you can already see running in the background is that we spawn 10 balls per frame. We will count the balls and we collect data on what exactly happens when we see the first frame drop below 50 FPS peak, the first 1 second average below 50 FPS, then the first peak frame drop below 15 FPS, and a 1 second average below 15 FPS, which basically means the game is now unplayable. What's different to before is that we now look at separately the fixed and the variable time step variance, where we try to emulate the default settings of Avian in the first scenario and Rapier in the second one. So for Avian settings, we will set 64 Hz fixed time step and at force 6 sub-steps also for Rapier. When we will look at the Avian defaults, and the Rapier defaults at 60 Hz, we will move everything to the post-update schedule, the variable schedule, and to still have some sort of time step fixing, we will also apply the weird hack that's used in Rapier to limit the time steps. Which would probably need a lot of back-end work to make it actually work properly. We will see that there's some issues with that later. Yeah, with that, let's have a look at the results for the fixed schedule. So fixed post-update schedule, which is the default condition for Avian. If we compare the two under these conditions now, it's crazy how much Avian outperforms Rapier. Avian saw the first frame drop below 50 at 9,580 balls, where Rapier only did 3 to 10. The average below 50 is reached at 11 to 80, whereas Rapier did 4,920. First below 15 is at roughly 11,000 versus 4,000, and then the average below 15 is at 13,000 versus 7. Yeah, you can see in the background already it's slowing down rapidly. The 3D results are very similar, same trend. We have 9,000 for Avian, 1,400 for Rapier, 12,000 at average below 50 versus 5,200. Then we have first below 15 at 12,000 versus 5,000, and average below 15 at 15,000 versus 8,500. Hey, psst, hey you! If you like what you see so far, please like, share and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm and I really appreciate it. And this is the easiest way to follow further interesting devlogs like this, or also to keep up to date with my upcoming space game with way too much physics. Thanks. Now let's have a look at what happens under the variable time step. Now we let Avian run in post-update schedule, which is the non-default for this. So the settings are really not tuned for this. And probably the hacky delta time limitation that I try to impose on this leads to the issues that we see here. It actually looks like a really interesting liquid simulation, but the non-determinism that is caused by the post-update schedule leads to quite wacky behavior here. However, as you can see, the performance is still going strong. It's quite mesmerizing, really. So yeah, this screen, and with that also the box is full, and we see that the number of clipped balls is increasing in the top right. So that means we're now actually overfilling the box, and the balls will be spawned outside, and only then we drop to an average below 50. Under these Rapier native but less deterministic conditions, Avian also performs really well in 3D space. The whole video now is about 5.5 minutes until we actually get our last measurement done, so I will show you a few seconds of this here, but then we'll skip to the end. There we go. We can see it's slowing down rapidly now, but we hit more than 50,000 balls live modeled in our 3D box here, before the average frame rate actually drops below 15. This is really good. There we go. 54,490 balls. That is a lot of balls. All right, let's look at the results. Again, let's first compare the 2D results. The picture is similar to before, just both perform much better now. Avian 2D will give 15,650 balls before we first hit below 50. Rapier's at 9,800. Average below 50, 19,500 for Avian and only 11.3 for Rapier. Both of them will overfill this box completely without us ever seeing a single frame rate below 15 or a 1 second average below 15. Let's go on. Now, when it comes to 3D, again, similar results. Avian 3D will give 14,000 before we first hit below 50. Rapier 13. Below 50 on average over a second is at 18 and 15,000. First below 15 is hit at 33,000 versus 20. And average below 15 at 54,490 versus 29,480. So both of them can model a lot of balls under these conditions. So getting back to the initial question of this video, is the feather stronger than the sword? Yes. But I really want to take a moment here to thank you guys on behalf of the whole community. Thank you to the creators and maintainers of Avian, of Rapier, of Bevy, Godot, and all these great open source tools that you make as volunteers that really keep game development going. It's really great that you make this for everyone to use it in their hobbies or even for commercial use. Thank you. So yeah, please visit my site on itch.io. There you can get the online version and also versions for all major platforms for downloading, for running the ball pit simulation on your own machine. The web version runs on a single core though, so you would want to probably download the exe file or the files for Mac or Linux. Alright, cool. Let's then have a brief look at pre-alpha footage of my game so you can see what Avian is doing for me right now. I'm not aware of any actual performance bottlenecks right now, but I want to just mention that this isn't even an optimized build. So this is dev build, not a release build with Rust optimizations built in. Alright, that's pretty fun already. Let's get to an end. Thanks everyone for watching and see you next time. This was Florian from Molecular Sadism Games. Bye bye.